So this on the right is just a flyer we have that is describing these four strategies. And, we've had congregations who have kind of used a pledge, a sanctuary pledge, as a way to organize their congregation. And that we've seen has been very effective to kind of really spell out what does it mean and invite the congregation or house of worship in a dialogue. And if it can lead to some kind of vote. Sometimes that's an important thing for some congregations. So we have sample pledges if that's helpful, a helpful tool to you all. And there's also, as was mentioned earlier, Noel Anderson couldn't be here with Church World Service. He's doing a lot of the organizing on the national level. There's a national sanctuary pledge that they've also put out. And so I'll share that as well, so you can sort of see if any of those would be helpful in your discernment in your community. So for the first kind of strategy, deportation defense, as Sarah was mentioning, this is really about knowing your rights and preventing people being detained and practice, right? So it's one thing to sort of understand your rights, but how are you embodying what this means? And so it's important that both folks, immigrant communities directly impacted, have know their rights, and there's a lot of trainings happening, a lot of train the trainers, and it's important for congregations to also know our rights. In California, yes.
Gayla, I have a question.
Yeah.
So you're talking about red cards, and I think that, some of the focus that we need for our communities is, so what do we do? How do we get red cards? What do we do if ICE shows up one morning and,
Yeah.
like here in Kentucky, one of the largest growing communities is the Hispanic community, and we have a lot of individuals that are afraid to show up. So, what do we? How do we get the red cards? What are red cards? What do we do if ICE shows up at our door and we're not prepared?
Yeah.
How do we prepare?
Yeah. Well, the red cards, yeah, there's a lot of groups that have been printing and giving for free, and then there was a backlog. We've actually been printing our own.
Okay.
So we can share a little template. If any of you have the resources to just print your own, we highly recommend that.
Okay.
And I think there's both the training of the community to understand their own rights, those that are directly impacted. And then there's the training of congregations. So depending on where you are in the country, there's different resources. I have, and so we're also just encouraging folks to kind of train up yourselves. And maybe folks have already seen some of these resources on videos that you can even watch as a congregation and understand more. I have lots of resources to share, but I think it's just important for congregations to understand. And I'm not a lawyer, so I can't get into the weeds of the legality.
Gotcha.
But it's important to know that just sanctuary, the name sanctuary doesn't really give protections. And in 2011, there was this sensitive locations memo that was limiting immigration enforcement in locations where essential services were being provided, places of worship, schools, hospitals. And that was actually expanded under Biden in 2021. As we know, when this current administration came into office in January, Trump withdrew that policy, that memo. And so that's been a big concern for faith communities. There has been some lawsuits filed, and I'll send a link of like the latest on those different lawsuits. And even with or without this memo, we do have rights. The Fourth Amendment rights that ICE still cannot enter private areas of the church without a judicial warrant. So part of the training for staff is to know what that looks like. So if ICE were to come and they don't have that warrant signed, you absolutely do not have to let them enter. And so that's a big part of the training, is just sort of preparing staff or lay volunteers who are on the premises to know what to look for.
Great.
It's also about not giving consent. The moment you allow them in, then you're sort of allowing them to come in to your premises. And so that's where it's really important to not consent to having them come onto your property. There's also, we still have the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which also provides some protections to religious individuals. For example, this was used when people along the border were providing food and water in the desert and were being persecuted. They were able to, under this act, fight that persecution because it was protecting their ability to do their ministry as a part of their religion. So those currently are still rights that we have in the faith community. And so I think that's just important for us to know. There is a lot of resources, and I'll send this in a link. Signage is just really important to have up in your congregations that can inform ICE, like this, the one on the right, that you do not have consent without a judicial warrant, and then signage internally so that staff that are on premises can kind of know the steps and what to do. We just encourage also faith communities to do your own role playing and training. This is really embodiment work, and
Yeah.
to have folks really get into the role of what you do in that moment.
I think we have some questions in the chat.
Okay, I can't see the chat. Could you read it?
Yeah, absolutely. Rebecca, will you grab that question?
I would be happy to. Yeah. Catherine has asked, what does a private area of a church mean?
That's a really good question, because we know that it's sort of when churches are open for service, it becomes a public space in a way. And so it's like when churches are closed, the premises can be considered a private area. But I'm going to drop, I'm not exactly sure how to specifically answer that question, but one of the resources I'm going to share is how one church here in Oakland is kind of defining that, like under what hours, what do you do in certain conditions, like when church is in service versus out of service. So I'll share that resource.
Does anybody else have any questions? You can use the raised hand function or put your question in the chat.
Okay. No question. Okay. Well, so that's just, I think, one part of being, in this moment, and how are we strengthening sanctuary around congregations and people in community. I do want to lift up, I saw a hand that went up, but just in California, we do have, these kind of rapid response hotlines that different regions are running, so that if people are visually seeing ICE activity, you can call in. And so I think that's also a really powerful tool for congregations to know about in your area. What is the local rapid response hotline? If you are in California, we've created little cards that have the number for different hotlines, at least in the Northern California region, that we'd be happy to share. So you can have those. You can have those on site as well. There was a Sarah.
Yes, Sarah had her hand up, and then there's also another comment in the chat, which is, I still don't understand what a red card is.
Oh, a red card. I should have brought it. A red card is literally a little red card that sort of says very clearly what are your rights. And so someone who may be targeted or picked up by ICE, they can show the red card, the right to remain silent. I can't read it. I don't have it in front of me, but it's a very handy tool that people can use to either, and you can use as a congregation. If ICE were to come, you can actually, and you don't want to open your door, you can slip out the red card sort of stating that you have rights to not allow them to enter.
Right.
So I can also put that in my follow-up email.
That would be great. It sounds like what I'm hearing you say is that you will provide a lot of additional information. I know you haven't been given a lot of time to go through this, and
Yeah.
this is a good overview. And I think that with the information that you can provide, and maybe you can come back at a later date and we can talk after we get the information, perhaps do some training and figure out how to do some training for some of our communities. That would really be helpful. And I think, Sarah, you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question about sort of the breadth of what we consider possible ICE inquiries at this point. Like, I know that the United States is taking the position that birthright citizenship is for it does not apply to anyone after slavery. And so that means that anybody who was born in this country to immigrant parents and believes themselves to be a citizen could be at risk, potentially from, they shouldn't be at risk, but they could be at risk because the United States has declared that they are not citizens. And then also, I knew that this may be beyond the scope of what you were going to talk about, but I think it might be of interest. I gather that the interfaith, well, other aspects, maybe it's not you guys, interfaith movements are also providing sanctuary potentially to trans people, regardless of immigrant status. And I didn't know if there's anything that you had on that.
Can I just interject something here for a second? I'm trying to keep us on topic, and so I think that that's a very important question about trans people.
Yeah.
No, and that's a topic that we can certainly address at a later time.
Well, I'm asking what the breadth is of the potential ICE invasions and incursions into our sanctuaries, and because it may be that people perceive that they don't have anybody in their congregation that's at risk, and they may not realize that's gotten a lot broader, what somebody might consider ICE's business.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I would just I would say that by congregations kind of in places of worship, sort of taking a bold, more public stand on safety and understanding your rights, it's going to protect more people, right? Like it's going to provide a safe space for more people. And so I think a lot of these principles, practices do apply to all the community. As you're saying, Sarah, more and more communities are being targeted. And today it's immigrants, tomorrow, so I think the more that we can just strengthen our faith communities, our local and city and county policies and practices, that will benefit many of us, all of us. How much more time is there? Because I'd love to at least share more about closing detention. I think that's a really important part.
You're actually overtime, but
I'm overtime. Okay.
But I think we could give you 5 more minutes if you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
5 more minutes. I just want to see, is Kelly here? Kelly Younger? Raise your hand. If not, okay. Kelly runs our accompaniment work. A lot of our work is around just walking alongside people who are fighting a deportation or trying to get their asylum or living life in our community. And so we do a lot of work of just helping folks who are in our community navigate. But I want to share, I can also share these slides.
I'm also here, Gayla, if you want me to share.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Kelly, why don't you take a minute to share about accompaniment, and then I'll end with the with detention work.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Kelly. Thank you for inviting us to come. I just joined you late. Just to share a little more about accompaniment. With accompaniment, we try to find ways that we can walk alongside people who recently arrived or who are getting out of detention or even in detention. And there's a lot of different ways we've done that over the years. One of the ways is that people are actually asking for right now is simple, basically accompaniment to appointments. So ICE check-ins, to a court. I'm calling it an appointment, but it's a court session. So if people are able to just be present, it's their presence that makes a difference. And there's no other role needed. It's basically moral support. So the one day accompaniment helps people not feel alone and like they have community around them. We also have longer term accompaniment where we create you can create pods of 4 to 5 people from a congregation, and they commit 6 months to walking alongside someone or their family. And what that looks like is that the newcomer will create goals, and then we will center around their goals. So for example, if they are looking for food resources, then we might guide them to a food bank in the community. It's to get them plugged into the community through through their team, and also moral support in that way, that they know they have this team of 5 people there for them. And you can actually see in this picture, this is 2 years ago, all of the people that we accompanied, all the newcomers and some of their team members. So we also have created a program with our local immigration court, which is located in Concord, California. And they are allowing us to bring in volunteers, which we're calling welcome navigators. The volunteers their role is literally to welcome people, because people arrive and they don't know where to go in the building. They're terrified. And by being a welcoming presence, then it helps to calm the nerves and also reassure people that someone's on their side. And that's in partnership with another organization that provides legal support. And so we can literally walk them over to attorneys of the day, and they can get advice if they would like it. A few more pieces of how accompaniment can be provided. Many people, what they're asking for is legal support, and there just aren't enough legal organizations around or lawyers. And so we have partnered with a paralegal who's qualified to fill out documents. He can't represent people in court, but he can fill out different legal paperwork like asylum applications or change of venue, to change your court venue, or change of address if you've moved. And he's training volunteers who have no legal experience to be able to fill out this paperwork as well. And that way we have created a team of pro se legal support whose intention is to empower the people that are getting the legal support to understand the process that they're in, and also get their paperwork in as the first step, which buys them protection from ICE because they have immigration paperwork in, and they're in a process, but it also reassures them and brings confidence that they know what they're doing. And then lastly, or second to lastly, we have an emergency fund. Often people find themselves, maybe it's a bad month, maybe something happened in their home country they had to send money for. And so we have an emergency fund of up to $500 for a one-time use. And that's a great way to provide assistance to people without while still encouraging self-sufficiency. And lastly, we work really hard to try to create housing options. Most of the housing options we come across are either rooms available that congregations are willing to offer on their campus, or it is a room available in someone's home. And so we call that hosted housing because they're really your guest, and you make an agreement for how long they may be staying in the space and what the different rules are per se, and go from there. And we've even created a partnership with University of San Francisco, who is offering us 10 rooms to host guests in over the summer with their unused dorm rooms. So there's a lot of creative ways to create housing spaces, and just want to encourage you all to consider these options, and we're happy to consult or offer you support while you try to create these in your own space.
Thank you so much,
Kelly.
Kelly. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Gayla, we're like out of time. We've got a finance report we need to do. So, are there any last minute questions? Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate both of you. I appreciate this organization so much. And I look forward to receiving this information so we can get it out, disseminate it to all of our communities. No matter what kind of community you are, it's really important to know this information and to have it on hand. So I'm so appreciative of your time.
Thank you for having us. If ever you want the stuff we didn't get to talk about, happy to come back another time, talk about how we're closing immigrant detention. That's a big part of it. And if you want to stay engaged, there's a QR code.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We will definitely have y'all back. Is there any last minute questions for Gayla? Righty.
Just a lot of gratitude in the chat.
Yeah, a ton of gratitude. If you stop sharing, you'll see all the gratitude. Thank you so much, you all. Appreciate you. Let's all give them some love.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Feel free to reach out.
So, very quickly, I know we want to give an update. Tye's going to give us an update on the building and some financial information. I just want to encourage everybody. I wanted to talk about how to engage with the spiritual leader who happens to be me right now. If you need me to come to your center for an occasion or a video, you would like me to make a video or send a letter, there is a link in our newsletter that went out last week, and you can also go to our CSL. There's the form. Thank you, Holly, the link to the form. So it's if it's important or you'd like me to show up, please use that form or send me an email. I just came back from the Pacific Northwest, where I visited 3 centers, and it was amazing. I got to connect with so many people, and it was just such a wonderful experience for me. And I love connecting with people. So please let me know. And that is all I have to say about that. So Tye, where are you? And can you give us an update on the building? The burning question of the day is what's happening with that building?
I have to add, Sonny, that the experience was wonderful by those who were there participating with your visit. From my experience as an observer, Olympia, Seattle, and Tacoma all really enjoyed your visit. It was remarkable.
Thank you.
So as for updates, I am pleased to announce we have 2 offers on the building. None of them are quite where we want them to be. We're negotiating, but I have every expectation that we'll be able to get that done. So working on that, and then pleased to also announce that we received a bequest a couple weeks ago of $355,000. So that puts us back on budget for the year and a little bit better actually. And so that is a very nice position to be in right now as we move forward for the rest of the year.
Great. Any questions for Tye, anybody? Questions in the chat or raise your hand? It'd be good to raise your hand. Wow, everybody's so quiet today.
It is good news, and I will say I'm all grateful to everybody who has supported the magazine. We did see an increase in donations for the magazine. We are engaging in several efforts to try to work with marketing firms to expand the subscription. We haven't really been active, I think, in that way in recent years, maybe 5 years now since the pandemic. So I know the magazine is incredible. It's a gift. In fact, I think our benefactor with the recent bequest was a magazine follower, not necessarily a community member. So, you know, the magazine does a lot of good work for us. And I know that it is going to reach a lot of new people when we try to partner, when we partner with Unity. And there are many ways to boost subscription. I think we'll explore so that the partnership is strong with Unity, and we'll continue good work on that.
And let me just add to that you can also buy a digital subscription, which is really inexpensive for someone who's incarcerated or someone who is in one of our global markets, such as Africa or South America, even, Europe, who cannot necessarily afford a subscription. So it's a great way to get our magazine out there globally. Okay. I also want to remind everybody, if there's no more questions for Tye, that in September I'll be in the Oakland area in Northern California. In December in Florida. December is a good time to go to Florida, I think. So I'd like to invite everyone to, if you do not know what a chamber of prayer is, it is how we have been ending our Monday calls. I want to first thank everybody for being here and spending your valuable time on this connection call. I appreciate all of you and value you. And so what we do with the chamber of prayer is we will open up we will take ourselves off mute, and we are all going to pray at the same time. And what we've been doing, and it's working, is we're praying for our organization, for Centers for Spiritual Living, our global organization, for thriving, and for the building to sell. So all along those lines, whatever you would like to pray for, and I appreciate that. So I will begin, and when you finish your prayer, you're welcome to exit the call. Any last thoughts before we start, or questions? Okay, this really is a quiet Monday.
I think we have
Then
a
I shall begin.
question. I think we have a question in chat, Sunny. I think what Margie
Okay.
has a question in chat.
All right. There seems to be a growing need to tend to all who are participating online only and do not necessarily have an affiliation with a particular center, mostly due to the closing of centers. How can there be a way to connect with this growing number of folks? I'm not sure I understand that question.
Well,
So
this is Marjorie, and I'll just say that I was mostly asking that question because I think that it seems to me that there is a growing number of centers closing, and people who are participating online either just by watching on YouTube or getting the newsletters and taking courses from classes, from centers or from CSL, and just, wanting to have a way to participate, but they're not necessarily involved with a particular center.
Well, I think you can go to, and I may not be answering this correctly, so just let me know if I'm not answering your question. But I think that you can go to any center you want and subscribe to their YouTube channel or watch on Facebook. These connection calls we have, there are all kinds of focus groups as well that you can join. You might want to email Nan at home office and tell her your interests, and maybe she can point you towards a focus ministry or a teaching chapter or another center. And somebody else has their hand up. Is this answering your question?
Yes, this is helpful. I think I was speaking maybe on a more general, broader level, but your answer was perfectly fine, and thank you for answering my question. Thank you.
You bet. Stephen, do you have your hand up? You're on mute.
I just wanted to add to that there are a number of centers that are entirely virtual. I'm a member of CSL Greater Pittsburgh, and we are entirely virtual, and we have people join from all over. So anyone would be welcome to attend Sunday, 10:30.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. And if you go on our website, and there's an area there where you can find a center or find a community, and you can just put your zip code in, I think. I haven't done that for a long time, so I'm not sure, but I think
actually, Sonny, that particular feature, the locator, oh, it's working now. Okay, Holly, I was gonna say it wasn't great news. Thanks.
Thank you, Nan.
And don't forget spiritual circles. That's a great way.
Circles. All right. Spiritual circles as well. I mean, now we're talking. Now we're communicating. Thank you all for helping me out there. I appreciate it. All right. Having said all of that, now we can pray. So, and also, yes, thanks for Lorenza for providing our interpretation. Thank you all so much. I will start our prayer, and let's unmute and go for it. I know that there is only one power and one
Yes, there's one presence,
oneness,
love,
connection,
supreme intelligence, individual love, is joy, and order and light. And when that essence has force, that intrinsic intelligence, therefore I am peaceful, light. And I know, and I am this order
Right now, and it's the end
I will also abundantly increase and that all will persevere beyond the close of the
Very good.
and
each other.
Very
So
good. Let go.
that which
So it is.
he feels contribution to the organization better, do better, more for all that I do in the organization, for to be part of this team and the leadership team that is knowing that the organization grows and grows and grows and much more and the world. It's this the law which only ever says yes, a release of that no one has that
Lovingness, that's beloved.
Grateful and thankful. I am grateful and thankful for every member of this conference, each and every center, all of our leaders, being thankful, knowing that it is all is well. I release this. So it is.
So it is. Thank you all.
So it is.
Bye.
thank you.